I am afraid of my husband. Am I overreacting? Sorry if this is long, I want to make sure I get every relevant detail. My husband and I have been married for over a year. Looking back now, I think I am in an abusive relationship. My husband has always been a drinker, but it had gotten worse after the wedding and finding out I was pregnant. Many of our arguments had to do with sex and how I never had sex with him enough. After our wedding, our dog died, and the next day he was screaming at me that I hadn't had sex with him all week and that if I didn't he would kick me out. I became pregnant and was very sick the entire time. I was in the hospital a total of 4 times, not counting the time I was there to give birth. He told me how lazy I was most of my pregnancy and how dirty the house was all the time. He told me I was a slave driver for asking for water all the time and how I wasn't big enough to ask for things when I could get up and get them. He would also complain that we weren't having sex on the days that my vomiting was at a minimum. I vomited almost every day of my entire pregnancy. We had sex once on one of my better days, and he then questioned me on why and why only then. During this I was fighting to stay working as my work was doing everything it could to try and fire me because I was pregnant. I had my boss scream in my face to the point I thought he was going to hit me. I was eating as much as I could when I was able to keep food down. One time I ate 4 pancakes, a bag of hot Cheetos, broccoli, carrots, celery, and ranch in one sitting, and he made a comment about me being a hungry hippo. He showed up to our baby shower late and drunk. I ended up having severe preeclampsia. I was watching my blood pressure and was told to take my blood pressure twice a day. If it was high, try and relax for 10 minutes and try again. It was high one night when I checked, so I checked again and told my husband. He had me wait and check a 3rd time, because maybe I did it wrong. We then went to the hospital. He first had to stop for gas and then almost ran the car off the road because he needed better music. He yelled at me for overreacting when I said he was scaring me. When we got to the hospital, they took me back and immediately told me that I had severe preeclampsia and that I was going to have an emergency C-section. He barely held my hand or comforted me. He told me it was my fault because of all the junk food I ate that made my blood pressure so high. During the surgery, I was so sick they had a suction tube down my throat because I couldn't get the vomit out because I was so numb and was choking on it. My babies were rushed to NICU and my husband went with them. I wasn't allowed to hold my babies for the first 24 hours due to the medications then had me on. I wasn't even supposed to see them, but a nurse took me back anyways. Once I was in my room, my husband left. He had been awake for over 24 hours and he refused to sleep on the hospital room couch. My best friend stayed as long as she could and then I was alone, drugged and without my babies. He came back after sleeping and stayed the rest of the night and then left after his parents came and visited. I was in the hospital for 4 days after giving birth. He would leave every night around 6/7 p.m. and wouldn't come back until 11 a.m., noon. He kept saying that he needed his sleep and he had to take care of the dog. My mom had offered to take care of the dog. He would tell me that the babies were in the most expensive daycare they will ever be in and that I was being taken care of like I was on vacation. When I was released, my babies were still in the NICU and I couldn't drive. I would have to ask him to take me up to the hospital. He would always take his time and never got me there before rounds so that I could speak to the DRs. My took me when she could and my DR cleared me to drive after I was out of the hospital 2 days as long as I wasn't on pain meds. He hated being there and even took a few days where he didn't come up at all. When the babies came home after 11 days in the NICU. I know, not too long but felt like a lifetime. He was still on leave for 1 more day. He refused to help me during the night with the babies. I was a stay-at-home mom now. It is literally my job to take care of them 24/7. I had to call my mom for help because I was being crazy when I had to go in the other room and scream because the babies had been crying non-stop and I hadn't had more than 2 hours of sleep in a week. Finally he started helping more after he listened to me, through the baby monitor and cameras in the house, on the phone talking to my friend talking about how I am doing it all alone and he won't help. He told me I wasn't allowed to talk to other people about our problems and that now my friends hate him because I can't keep our problems between us. He also said I called him a bad father. I don't remember saying this, but he has told me I did so much that I can't remember. After that he would let me take naps during the day on his days off. One day I woke up to him touching my body and told him to stop. He had done this before and I told him not to. We got into a fight about it. I ended up moving downstairs onto the couch with the babies in a bassinet. We then had a fight so bad I took the babies to stay at my mom's for a week. He proceeded to punch a hole in the wall and tell me if I left we were done. Then we met at a public place and I told him that he had to quit drinking and go to therapy. He told me if I divorced him he would take everything and I would never see my kids again. That was almost 4 months ago. We have been both going to therapy. I have been working on being physically affectionate towards my husband, hand-holding, hugs, cuddling. He says it's not good enough and I need to have sex with him. I keep telling him between the way he has treated me in the past and the traumatic birth experience I need more time to feel comfortable with my body and safe with him. This has started many arguments. He has told me things like, I am going to go cheat on you, you could have it way worse, what was the point of marrying you if you won't sleep with me? I have been working hard in therapy and finally moved back into our bed. I was very clear that my fear was him touching me while I was sleeping. Which brings us to last night I woke up to him touching my boob. I was upset and left the room. He got mad because he is sick of waiting. I told him he touched me without my consent and that he knew I wasn't okay with it. His response was to get angry and tell me there isn't consent between husband and wife. He also talked about how he isn't allowed to go through my phone so he thinks I am cheating. I told him going through my phone is an invasion on my privacy. He then told me that there is no privacy in a marriage. I told him I was afraid of him and I don't trust him. I am now sleeping on the playroom floor with the door locked. He says I am being ridiculous. Am I crazy? Am I overreacting? I don't feel safe to sleep in my own home.